Hey, what up, everybody? It's Myron Butler, and you're listening to True Tunes Podcast with my main man, John Thompson.
I remember the first time I went to South by Southwest after having taken on a roster of gospel artists and writers alongside my other work at a major music publisher. Prior to that moment, whenever I would be talking with a music supervisor or director and they would ask me who I worked for or what kind of music I represented, no matter how I framed it or how carefully I tried to avoid labels or tags, 9 times out of 10, once they sniffed out that the company I worked for was affiliated with Christian music or that the artists made Christian music, they reacted. It was usually positive, though a bit condescending. They'd say things like, "Cool, good for you, I like that stuff." They were often just a little aloof, though. They still had a hard time taking the music completely seriously. But when I went there repping gospel music, it was a completely different story. Whether talking with supervisors or blinged out rappers, without exception, every time I told someone that I worked with gospel artists, the response was just about the same. I love gospel music.
Oh, happy day. Happy day. Oh, happy day. Happy day. When Jesus wore. Jesus wore. Oh, when he wore. When Jesus wore. Jesus wore. He washed my sins away. Lord.
Hello, I'm John J. Thompson, and I had an interesting combination of duties during my time as the Director of Creative and Copyright Development at Capital CMG Publishing. One of the main things I oversaw was the pitching of our writers' songs for placement in film, television, advertising, and games. This work sent me to places like South by Southwest, the Billboard Film and Television Music Conferences, and on many trips to Los Angeles and New York to meet with music supervisors, artists, songwriters, producers, and directors. A few years into my time at the company, though, I was asked to take all of the gospel artist writers and producer writers under my own wing. We developed a special gospel publishing roster, and I was given the task and honor of serving them as their day-to-day publishing representative at the company. And it was an unbelievable roster, from some of the biggest names in the industry, such as Kirk Franklin, Marvin Sapp, Fred Hammond, Hezekiah Walker, Israel Houghton, and Dietrich Haddon, and legacy artists like Walter Hawkins, Daryl Coley, John P. Key, and one of my all-time favorites, Andrae Crouch. This was truly a dream team. I've been a fan of gospel music since I was a kid, and the opportunity to serve these artists and ministers was an absolute honor.
Though you cried all through the night, tears will turn to joy in the morning light. What's to come is better than what's been. Just hold on till the end. The past is behind you. The future looks bright for you.
On this episode of the True Tunes Podcast, one of the writers on that roster and one of my favorite gospel artists, the amazing, multi-talented Myron Butler, is going to walk us through his recent tribute to another of my favorites and one of the most important and influential artists of all time, the late, great Andrae Crouch. And in the process, he's going to help us understand what makes gospel music so special, so important, and so relevant to so many people. A little later, we'll crank up the jukebox and consider the amazing 1972 Amazing Grace album by Aretha Franklin. It's a long overdue gospel music meltdown on the True Tunes Podcast, and it all gets grooving right after we take care of a little bit of housekeeping.
Welcome back to the True Tunes Podcast.
As I mentioned before the break, Myron Butler was one of the gospel artists on my roster at Capital. It was a thrill to work with him because he was always out there in the trenches working on something amazing. He was a songwriter, producer, and served at the local church in Dallas every week. Major, and I mean major artists were blowing up his phone, constantly asking him to do vocal arrangements for their records or to work with their choirs. And all the while, he was taking care of his wife and kids in a really amazing way. And believe it or not, another one of my writers was the aforementioned Andrae Crouch. I've been listening to Andrae since I was a kid, and I have been inspired by the intentionality he had when it came to bringing people together across racial and even generational lines with his music. I also loved that his work was so good that it got him noticed by, and got him to work with, people like Michael Jackson and on projects like The Color Purple and The Lion King. Everyone knew Andrae was a gospel artist, but his chops earned him a seat at the big kids table. I got to be Andre's publisher for a few years before his death, definitely one of the honors of my professional life.
This is another day that the Lord has kept me. This is another day He blessed me. Kept me from all evil with my mind stayed on Him.
And I know He's gonna keep me until He returns again.
This is another day that the Lord has
For
kept
the
me.
Lord has blessed me.
This is another day.
I know He kept me from all evil, and I know He's gonna keep me until He returns again.
So, when Myron Butler released an entire album of Andrae Crouch songs, I flipped out. Then I dug into it and saw a few familiar names collaborating on some tracks. People like Kirk Franklin, Dorinda Clark Cole, and Fred Hammond, as well as a slew of new-to-me names and up-and-coming artists. As I listened, I got more and more excited. I just knew that I needed to get Myron on the show, not only to talk about his own story through gospel music, but to talk with us about Andrae Crouch in particular and gospel music in general. Well, Myron Butler, thank you for joining the True Tunes podcast, man. It has been too long since we have been in the same place together, my friend.
Too long, and it is so good. Even though I'm looking at you through the computer, it's been too good. And, but it's always good to hear your voice, and always good to reconnect with you.
Tell me what you're involved in. You're an artist. You're a vocal arranger. You're a worship leader at church. You're you do a ton of stuff. So kind of right now, what is Myron Butler doing? Like you're kind of doing everything. You got a lot of hats on that head.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you have to. I mean, I think, first of all, I am currently the Director of Music and Fine Arts at Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, where Dr. Tony Evans is the pastor. Been there about 3 years. And always, writing songs. I'm always producing music for artists. And, a couple of years ago, I put out a book. And so you're right. I have been wearing a lot of hats just because there's a lot in me that I want to get out. And, so in this season, the other thing that I'm really being intentional about is pouring back into the next generation of artists, right, and the next generation of songwriters and producers, because I think, for me, it's all about legacy, and legacy is passing down that information, not just me, taking advantage of everything that comes my way. So, just kind of like a, 360 thing, I feel like I was always a hybrid, singer, songwriter, and, vocal arranger or producer. That was always me, just because that's what I grew up doing. I grew up doing choir workshops when I was in my late teens and early 20s. Started singing God knows how long ago, and a musician playing the piano in church. So I was always all of those things at the same time.
You got your first cut as a songwriter, if I'm not mistaken, when you were about 16, 17 years old. And
Yes.
that was was it Dallas Fort Worth choir, and it was a young guy named Kirk Franklin who was the choir leader on that project. So how did that come together? Tell me about that. I mean, that's a pretty big break for a kid.
It was, and John, at that point, I was so hungry. I was living in Dallas, and I had heard about this community choir, just, local singers and musicians, DFW Mass Choir, whoever wanted to be a part could. And I was in high school, I think maybe a sophomore in high school. And John, because we would have rehearsals one time in Dallas, and the other time we would have them in Fort Worth. I would literally, after school, I would get on the Greyhound bus and ride to Fort Worth, because Fort Worth is about 30 minutes from Dallas, and I would catch a ride, because I was so hungry to be a part of just this musical like smorgasbord. Like, there were all these different people from different backgrounds and different denominations, and we had something called New Music Monday. And so that was a time set aside where members of the choir or members of the community that were songwriters could come and present their songs. And I got brave enough one New Music Monday to come and present my song, and and everybody liked it. And so I was like, whew, okay, that worked. And I will never forget, I went to the back of the church, because the choir rehearsal was continuing, and Kirk Franklin was one of the choir directors, and he came up to me when I sat down. He said, "Hey, what's your name?" I said, "Myron." He says, "You got talent. I'm going to take you up under my wing." And it was literally just like that. I wasn't seeking him out. We just kind of got connected, and we've been connected ever since then, like ever since I was maybe like a sophomore in high school. And that was kind of my journey. The song was Lift Him Up, and I often tease everybody saying I am trying to find the button where you can go on the internet and delete all of the YouTube videos, because I look totally different. I've got this Gumby haircut. I've got on glasses, and I'm about this skinny. So when my kids saw it, they were like, "Dad, what's the matter with you?" But that was my first introduction into gospel music.
Give me a feel for the kind of training, practicing, preparation that you did leading up to that made it so that when that moment happened, you were able to step into it, and you had a song, and you had the skills so that a Kirk could take you under his wing and take you to the next level. What kind of work had you already done at that point?
Well, none professionally. Up until that point, it literally, like I said, I started playing the piano at 9 years old and started directing the choir around that same time. It was like the Sunshine Band and Sunday school. But interestingly enough, John, I started writing songs, like melody and lyrics would come to me at that young, and I didn't understand it. I was, nobody in my family comes from a musical background, so I'm like, what do I do with this? And I just, whatever came to my head, I would write it down. I would craft these songs. And so I was born in Florida. My mother and I moved here to Dallas, Texas, and I went to a arts high school. And so, of course, it was I'm going to date myself when I say this. It was the fame of Dallas, Texas. I know there will be not that many people know what fame is, but literally music all day. So we're talking about music theory. We were talking about choral singing. So that was where I kind of were the intersection of formal training and just what you have, the ability you have to nurture and develop to be proficient in church. Because I was, like I said, directing choirs and all those. So I had to have an understanding of harmony. I had to have an understanding of, just how to craft music in church. And so, my introduction to the formal side of that was when I got to the Arts Magnet High School here in Dallas, Texas. And, my sophomore year, I'm in, theory 2, learning about, harmonic and melodic minor and all, all of these modes and all of this. I'm like, what is this stuff? But it informed me to be able to kind of tap into all of that creativity that was inside of me.
What could we ever give to God in response to all that He has given us? I give Him my all. I give Him my life.
To me, you are an example of someone who took that opportunity and didn't let it go. Like, you put that into service for other people. Your career has been defined by serving other people, even though you are an artist, both as a solo artist and with your choir, Levi. But then Marvin Sapp, Kirk Franklin, all these other artists are calling on you to come in and arrange vocals and produce projects. And when you listen even to this latest project, the musical intricacy, the arrangements in the choir in the background, the arrangements in the guitar parts, the arrangements in the keyboard parts are next level stuff. And I can hear that music theory in there. And it's no wonder that the A-list people in gospel music continue to call on Myron Butler to make their work better. It seems like you from the beginning were looking for ways to serve other people. And then your work and your music was part of it, but it was always it seems like that was secondary to just being useful in the general environment.
Well, I think early on, John, I don't even think I really understood it. I don't even think I understood initially that who Myron is, the sum total of what Myron has to bring to the table is all of these things that support and all of these things that build up other people. It was just me saying, okay, I can, teach the choir, or I can help do this behind the scenes. And for me, later on in life, I realized, it was kind of like one of those spiritual epiphanies that you have. I realized that I was gifted to serve. Like, without a doubt, I am gifted to serve, and not for me to be served or necessarily celebrated, but I was gifted to help others. And so for me, that is one of the biggest driving forces in why I do what I do. And for me, it wasn't necessarily anything that someone just kind of beat or drilled into me. I don't know what that discovery point was, but I think it was always understanding that the gift that I had was bigger than me, and the gift that I had wasn't anything that I deserved. So wherever I had the ability to help uplift or just kind of undergird someone else, that's what I wanted to be found doing. And so it was always kind of my driving force. And what I did individually as an artist or as a songwriter, or as a producer, what I did individually, like you said, really was it played second fiddle, to wherever I can help someone else. And that's just been kind of my mantra for life. And, for me, it is literally, if I could say it in one sentence, I am gifted to serve.
GP. Lately I've been going through some things that's really got me down. Put your hands together. Come on. I need somebody to help me come and turn my life around. I feel like having some church up in here. Come on, chat. I can't explain it. I can't obtain it. Jesus, your love is so amazing. It gets me high up to the sky. And when I think about your goodness, it makes me wanna stomp. You can't take my joy, devil. Makes me clap my hands. I'm more than a conqueror. Can I get a witness up in here?
Well, you serve really well. And that gifting has put you in some amazing spots. Like, that's not why you were doing it, but gosh, I mean, as a kid, you found yourself on, working with Kirk Franklin, and then, one of the biggest crossover gospel songs in history happens.
Absolutely.
And, we have this song called Stomp that kind of redefines contemporary gospel music. What was it like to be caught up in that whole moment? And what, how did you have a role in that? How did you get involved with God's property and that whole thing?
Well, so John, like literally, God's property. I didn't start God's property, but it was kind of birthed out of something that I created. So when I was in high school, so I started out, in the DFW Mass Choir, but back then, what was really big was the Gospel Music Workshop of America. And so, as a songwriter, as a choir director, it was the pinnacle to have your songs recorded by the mass choir at GMWA. So I put together this choir of local friends and singers here for the sole purpose of recording my songs to submit to GMWA. Well, when we came together, everything was so cool. We decided to stay together, and so we did a little independent, recording that I keep hidden on a hard drive where no one else can hear it. But because it was humble beginnings, so we started there, and then that was in high school. Then I left and I went to Atlanta to Morehouse College, and the chaperone of that choir kind of went in some different directions. And one of the chaperones kind of because I was the choir director and my friend was the music director, Robert Seawright, and so his mom kind of gathered some of the singers, and that was the onset of God's property. And so some years passed, and then I come back to Dallas, and so then she's like, hey, you're our director, and so I want you to come back. And at that point, we're just this youthful, energetic, climb up the walls, energy through the roof, younger, youth choir. And we're singing around Dallas, and all we care about is just singing. And Kirk heard of us, of course, the community groups in the city. And he was like, hey, I want to do some music with you all. And that was the intersection. And, it started out actually on his What You're Looking For video. If you look at the What You're Looking For video in the church, there's this big choir up there in the choir stand, and God's Property was one of, was a part of that. And then he decided to do an album on God's Property. And John, I tell you, at that moment, we had no understanding of what platinum meant and what number one on Billboard. We had no idea. The only thing that mattered is we wanted to be able to sing our own songs when we went to the musicals and when we did musical performances. That was it. So we had no context, and we get to the studio to record this record, and MTV is there doing B-roll, and we're like, what? Okay. We're just some kids having fun. Little did we know that it would be one of the most impactful recordings in gospel music, period. And I often say, more times than not, when your motives are pure, it is the prime opportunity that God can use it to bless the world through you.
Yeah, amen. And that song, wow. And it was amazing when that thing was out there, because I heard it everywhere. I heard it bumping out of people's speakers in the parking lot at the grocery store. I heard it in the mall. I heard it they were playing it in clubs. They were playing it in movies. They were playing it. It was ubiquitous. It was gospel music in that moment was in the culture everywhere. Yep. And it was everywhere. It was not, to me, it was like Oh Happy Day, and how Oh Happy Day was not, it wasn't like, oh, we could maybe think of this as gospel music. It was gospel music. It was clearly gospel music. It was about absolutely Jesus. It was about the spiritual, and so it felt like that was what Oh Happy Day was, and then that's what Stomp was for another generation. It was gospel music for everybody.
Right. And that's the thing. And John, just to jump in, that there were some, it was gospel music, but because it was so, in the words, cutting edge and pushing the envelope, we were persecuted by a lot of people in the church, and because it was too this or too much this, but at its core, fundamentally, it's gospel music. But I think that the thing. And yes, songs like "Oh Happy Day" and those big songs had, transcended, or crossed over. But like you said, Stomp was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. It was in some places that we didn't even want it to be. It was like, people would tell us that, okay, they're playing this song in the clubs, and we're like, what? What are you talking about?
Oh yeah.
And it was one of those things that God just used it. But at its core, it's gospel music.
We're going to step away from our conversation with Myron Butler for just a couple minutes, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. A couple of years ago, I started creating a weekly playlist on Spotify called the True Tunes Gallery Stage Mixtape. And if you follow it, you'll find around 40 songs every week, from great hits and underground classics of the past to brand new tracks you won't want to miss. I've highlighted over 5,000 songs over the last couple of years, 40 at a time. You can see the massive archive list if you want to find the motherlode. The Gallery Stage Mixtape is just one more way True Tunes helps you listen to better music and listen to music better together. You can find it right on the homepage at truetunes.com. We recently blew past the 50,000 downloads mark, which is very exciting around here. Thank you for continuing to tell your friends about this show. If you have taken the time to write and post a review and give us a 5-star rating at Apple Podcasts, that means so much. If not, please do. Please keep posting links and inviting folks from your world into this conversation. Our best and pretty much only marketing is you. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor on this show, drop me a line at jjt@truetunes.com. Okay, back to our conversation with Myron Butler. That's a good segue into your most recent project, which is an entire album paying tribute to the songs and the work of Andrae Crouch, who's another artist who managed to transcend all of those boundaries. Is it gospel music? Is it contemporary worship music? Is it for white audiences? Is it for black audiences? Andrae just blew through all that. And as you tell your story, I remember sitting with Andrae when he was telling me his story, and I wish I had recorded it. But he said he was about, 8 years old, and he just said God started giving him songs, and he sat and looked at a piano and figured out how it worked, and and that's how it started with him. It sounds like a lot like your story, and he just felt like he was given this, and he didn't see the lines between whether this was supposed to be just for the church or for the rest of the world. And his songs have just transcended that stuff. So, but here you bring in a handful of really well-known artists. You got Kirk on here. You got Dorinda Clark Cole on here. And then you bring some artists that I've never heard of that are amazing. And I'm like, only he would do that. That's incredible. When did this idea hit you, and how did Andrae Crouch and his music and his legacy impact your life? What was the spark of his legacy for you?
Andrae was one that helped me early on when I heard Andrae Crouch as a young boy. I had never heard gospel music like that ever in my life. I was like, who, like what, like how, because it literally, John, it blew the roof off of what I knew gospel music could sound like and the things that it could speak to. I remember, I'll Be Thinking of You, and just all of these songs that were crafted in this incredible way. It had this incredible message, and it was undeniably talking about Jesus Christ. And so for me, he always built in or instilled in me, in like a secondhand way, that just do what God has called you to do. Write the songs that God has called you to write. Don't try to classify it. Don't try to, satisfy. Does it fit in this box? Does it fit in this box? Because Andrae was every box, And so,
right.
For me, we were literally, me and my friend Anthony Evans, we were in the studio, interestingly enough, helping Kirk out doing, BGVs on a demo or something like that he was doing. And so he and I were just talking, and, we started talking. I was telling Anthony how I grew up listening to straight ahead jazz music, and that in jazz music, they always do these songbook records, like Ella sings Cole Porter or Sarah Vaughan sings
right.
George Gershwin. And it's a whole album of that songwriter's music. And I said, there really isn't anything in gospel like this. I mean, I know we've done,
right.
Record labels have put compilations together, but an artist, reimagining the part of the catalog of a previous artist or songwriter. And it started right there, and I said, let's do it.
I'll be thinking of you, thinking of you. Though we're far apart, you're in my heart, and there you'll always stay till we meet again someday. I'll be thinking of you.
It literally took me about 2 years to put together, just because.
Oh gosh, I would think, yeah.
Because with all of the guests, the first thing that you have to kind of overcome is the scheduling. How do you schedule all of that? But the thing, going back to what you said, I knew going into doing this record that the star of the show are the songs. The songs
right.
are the star, not me, not the guests, but those songs. And so for me, it gave me perspective to know my position and posture. Not that you kind of capitulate and just kind of, but I know I am here. And the other thing that was very important to me is I believe that legacy and the musical legacy of the icons in gospel music need to be passed down and reimagined in every generation. I'm like,
right.
What would it sound like if Jonathan McReynolds covered, or did the James Cleveland songbook? Like, so because
right.
Jonathan McReynolds has a whole audience that probably has never ever heard of James Cleveland, and so it's a way of making
right.
sure that the songs stay alive. Yeah, I know, we've got YouTube and you can go Google anything, but I'm talking about keeping the music alive in every generation. So
mm-hmm.
that was literally to honor, of course, number one, the life, the legacy, and the music of one of the greatest, if not the greatest, but also to make sure that the music of Andrae and Sandra, because I did Holy Spirit on there, that Sandra wrote, that music
yep.
is passed down and remembered in every generation. And my ulterior motive literally was that I provoke another artist to do the same thing on a different artist. Or now the other thing that I knew is that you cannot cover the length and the breadth of Andrae's discography and catalog in one record. You just can't do it. So, you've got to settle on, a certain number of songs for one. So for me, it's about other artists reimagining his music and other gospel artists reimagining other legends and icons that have come before us. So that was really my heart, the thrust, and all of that. And, like we said, we start, Andrae in the 80s was doing cutting edge stuff musically, vocally, so you can't approach it haphazardly. So you got to come correct or stay at home.
We open our heart, Lord, to receive blessings you promised to those who believe. It's your anointing that directs us in all that we do. Holy Spirit, we call on you. Holy Spirit.
When you did this, I'm amazed at the breadth and the diversity of styles, the way that you approach track by track. It's not a cookie cutter thing. You don't go in this thing with a template and say, okay, we're going to make this. There's some that you have real fun nods to the 70s. There's the wah-wah guitar. There's some really cool kind of old school soul stuff from the 70s. And then, like you mentioned, Holy Spirit. I'm not familiar with Samote and that ambient. You use the choir and those backing vocals in a very different alternative way. Yeah. And I'm not familiar with him, and that style is just completely different than what I would have imagined. So tell me about, let's talk about this song, since that's where we're at, and then we'll kind of maybe I'm going to bring up a couple other songs and walk me through the decisions you're making. But since you brought it up, let's talk about Holy Spirit and how you jumped into something like this that's so left to center for
so one thing that I always, because in looking at how his twin Sandra, I was at a BMI luncheon one year when they honored Andrae, and it was one thing that I heard her mention, either in passing or maybe she said it on the mic, and she basically was saying that she realized early on in her life that her calling was to cover Andrae, to cover in the sense of protect, to guard, and that she knew that was her position, not to try to ascend to the same level of notoriety and popularity. She understood it from a spiritual sense, and it just grabbed me. And so when we did this record, I was like, I've got to include a Sandra song from somewhere. And I remember, of course, Andrae produced, the Andrae Crouch records, but I remember on that record, I believe it was either We're Waiting or what was the other record, that Holy Spirit. And when I heard the song, it was very simple. There weren't a lot of parts to it, but there was this ethereal kind of sound to even the chord choices for the singers, and how the singers kind of, at the end of the song, it's this kind of like angelic like kind of thing, while the soloist is just kind of ad-libbing, and it made me feel a certain way that was different than like traditional gospel music. Right. And so when I said I want to do that one, and so how I encountered Samote, he's this young, like uber talented artist from the Carolinas, and I was on social media one day, and he just reached out and he was like, your music literally changed my life. And John, he's going through not the Set Me Frees or the Strongers, he's going through like the obscure songs that you really have got to listen to my entire album to know, and he's singing these songs. And so I'm like, he's not just gaslighting me, he's saying it for real. So I go and look him up, and I was like, this dude is incredible. So for me, it was, how do I take his, and he has a unique approach to his singing style as well. I said, how do I take his unique style with this ethereal kind of ambient kind of feel that Holy Spirit kind of makes me feel like, and what does that sound like? And so it was very, not necessarily like a trap music, but it has little sprinklings of that, and then with these kind of Take Six type BGV parts, and it for me, it was just about capturing all of those things in one song, and using Samote's vocal approach and perspective to kind of reimagine the song, because that's really the thing that I wanted to do, that I was careful to do, is not to reimagine the songs so much that they're unrecognizable, but that it makes you go, wow. And that was, so for me, it was about pushing, but not pushing too far, because I think once again, the songs are the star.
This is one of them. I dare you to think about it. You really mean it. Say with us, son. Saying, put your hands together. Let's take it back, Myron. Can't nobody do me like you. Can't nobody do me like the Lord. Can't nobody do me like you.
I got to tell you, one day I'm driving here in Nashville, and there's a non-commercial music station that plays alternative music. It's like KCRW in LA. But it's not a Christian station at all. They play hipster alternative rock. I'm driving. It's the one my 17-year-old son prefers, and it's usually on in the car. One day I'm coming out from running errands somewhere, and I hear, I kid you not, your version of Andre's Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus playing on a rock
Are you
station
serious?
in Nashville.
John, are you serious?
You? I just about lost my mind, dude. I blasted that thing. I had tears in my eyes. I hear you and my good friend Fred Hammond, who at this point has so much funk in his voice, he doesn't even need consonants anymore. I was so filled with joy driving down 8th Avenue in Nashville. I could not believe it. And I'm telling you this, it reminded me of Stomp immediately, because here's a gospel song literally saying, Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus, playing on a rock station in Nashville. And it fit right in. It fit right between mainstream alternative hip rock. It sounded so good. Dude, this song is unbelievable. So talk about slick production. This song, you nailed it. Tell me about like how you approach this thing.
So on that, for us in the black church, we've been singing Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus all of our lives, every kind of way you ever could have heard it. But so I was like, because the one thing, because at some point you gotta decide on what songs you want to do and what songs you got to decide at some point. And so for me, one of the things that I was taking into consideration is I wanted some of the top level songs that weren't too far down, because you go down deep in the vault and everybody's like, oh, I don't know that one. So I said, okay, let's do Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus. And I was listening to one of Andre's records, and I heard It's Gonna Rain. And I said, wow. I said, what about if I took kind of like the funk pulse of It's Gonna Rain and put it with Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus? That literally and so I'm sitting there with the band, and I'm like, this is the mashup. This is two Andre mashups, but not everybody would get that listening to it. It's like, because Salvo mixed it, Paul Salvo mixed it. He's like, Myron, what is this? I've never heard. And he's just going through the roof. But it literally was me saying, let me take this kind of funk thing that he's got on It's Gonna Rain, and let me put that with Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus. And
that song feels to me like it should go out as a single to mainstream, like urban alternative radio. Like, it is just that good.
Living this kind of life, it gets sweeter and sweeter day by day. Oh, living this kind of life, everything is new and the old has passed away. Oh, happy days are here again. I've got new family and friends, and I'm thankful. Yes, I am. Oh, ever since I met Jesus Christ, I've been living this kind of life. Yeah, oh, it's a good life, such a sweet life. You know, I'd like living this kind of life, such a sweet life. You know I like living this kind of life, sweet life. I like living this kind of good life, such a sweet life. You know I like this kind of good life, sweet life. I like.
talking about another sort of left turn and another artist that I just wasn't familiar with, Peter Collins, in your version of Living This Kind of Life. This intro with this really cool guitar stuff. Another person I'm not familiar with. So tell me about how this track comes together.
So Peter Collins is like this vocal phenom that is on. I came across him on Instagram, and he's out of I think New Jersey, and he come to Dallas, and I'm just like, this dude can do anything with his voice. I'm just like, wow. And so his thing is very, guitar, singer-songwriter, kind of thing. And it's kind of like this, not necessarily folk music, but this very guitar-driven thing. But his vocal ability is kind of like Bobby McFerrin, meets James Taylor kind of thing. And so I was like,
that's a good,
I wanted space for him to approach it like he would. That is very left, very, what is this? He's killing. And so I wanted him the space. And so that's why you have like that minute and 30 seconds of him just with his guitar and his vocal at the beginning. And a lot of times that's all his songs are. But I knew I needed to couple it with something that's memorable, living this kind of life. And so we go from this little, guitar singer songwriter type vibe to, horns full on, boom, boom, boom. And because for me, I know I needed to bridge the gap between accomplishing two things with the Dayonas, with the Peter Collins, with Michael Lampkin, and those voices and names that aren't as known, is to pair them with a song that's memorable, so that even though you don't know the person, you know the song. So there are all these things that I'm just kind of thinking strategically from a putting the record together standpoint that, I'm hoping, to accomplish, so that once again, we can reimagine these songs and that voices in present day get a chance to resound, reshape, or reimagine these iconic Andrae Crouch songs. That to me is really what I wanted to accomplish with this record and with these songs.
It's kind of fun too. It reminded me that Andrae brought the guitar into gospel music in a way that a lot of gospel artists had not done. It seemed to me that gospel music prior to Andrae was a piano-driven or organ-driven genre. Yeah. And by bringing guitar in, even acoustic guitar, and that's also an artifact or a phenomenon of the Jesus music era, and that was probably one of the things that helped Andrae cross into the contemporary Christian music world a little bit. Was the guitar presence created sort of a touch point for white audiences, folk music audiences, people that it gave them an entry point anyway, something a little bit familiar for them to latch onto. As a kid myself, I remember the Live in London record was the one that grabbed me. The live performances and all that guitar work, and that it was more like elements of Isley Brothers and kind of
Sly Stone
soul stuff. Sly Stone, a little bit of that, and so hearing the way that he was bringing it, and I talked to him a little bit about that. And there was an intentionality in the way he was using instruments to broaden the appeal and to widen the palette of who he could be bringing to the musical table. And I feel like you're doing that throughout these songs.
Ladies and gentlemen, take me back. I want to take you back real quick. Take me back to that place. When you first fell in love, when your heart first said yes, come on, take me back down at the altar, on your knees, take me back, come on, I remember, you remember, we remember, let's go, take me back, I said take me back, dear Lord, when it was innocent, when it was brand new, when it was just me and you, take me back. Yes, sir. wanna go back. Take me back, dear Lord, where I when I first believed.
Were there any moments here, any of these songs that surprised you, like that you thought were going to go one way, but as you got into it, it was like, oh man, something different happened, or something just kind of startled you as an artist or as a producer?
I remember us with Take Me Back. I remember Take Me Back. Take Me Back initially was going to have Blanche McAllister Dykes. Blanche actually ends up leading Oh It Is Jesus. But I started with Blanche on Take Me Back, and I was listening to it, and it was cool. And because, we get this, this Elton John kind of thing, on Take Me Back, that's kind of the undertones that they're kind of, refresh it, revise it. And I was like, what I see a lot today is, I think not for a long time, but for some time, we've been realizing that there is a changing of the guard, and not a changing of the guard in the sense of doing away with what was, or the old, or whatever we want to call it. But, we see the advent of these new voices, from the Jonathan McReynolds, from the Anthony Browns to the, Tasha Cobbs, and all of these voices. And so for me, I said, aha, what about pairing? I don't want him to hear this and hear me call him this, but pairing the old,
I know what you're going to say.
or let me just say, the elder statesman,
the seasoned, right?
The seasoned,
experienced,
the experience that is Kirk Franklin, with this new kid on the block, Kalante Gavin, and who has these old nuances and approaches even in his voice. And so for me, that was one thing. It was kind of like this aha, as I had approached the song one way initially, and it was cool, but it wasn't like one of those Kodak moments just yet. And so, realizing that, kind of circling back around and saying, hey, Kurt, come jump on, do your thing. We got Kalante, and pairing those two, for me, once again, there are always these subliminal messages, even in the personnel, that I choose and that I, kind of pair up, that I'm kind of wanting that to send a message as well. So that would be one of the things that, I had approached it one way, and I was like, let's try this. And I think what we came out with was stellar, super stellar.
Man, and I'll tell you what gets me about that song too is that you've got Kirk with a certain amount of experience and weather in his voice. It's kind of unbelievable for a young person to be singing a song that's saying take me back to something. So when you have a weathered, experienced voice saying that, and then you have a younger voice, the younger voice almost represents that perspective that you're trying to get back to. And then you got that choir sounding so amazing on that track. Yeah. And to me, that's the host of witnesses. That's all of us. That's like the whole community of believers saying, we all need this. We all need to get away from the voices that are telling us about what divides us, away from all the distractions, away from all the noise, away from all of the stuff that right now is tearing us apart, and back to that moment when we heard something that called us to love. And it so well done. So well done.
I love that you say that, because you're right. It speaks so, pointedly to the times that we're in. I think, right now we are highlighting, we're focusing, we're magnifying what tears us apart or what our differences are. And it's like, God, if you could get us back to, as you said, the point where it was about the love that draws us all together, that it is the blood of Jesus that is there for us all, not black us, not white us, not brown us, but us all. And God, if you could get us back to that place, just kind of abandon all of these secondary, feudal and things that are tearing us or that have us at odds and that have us looking for points of contention and looking for offenses. No, let's look for the thing that binds us all together. And so you're right, just Kirk's weathered voice, Kalante's young voice, and I love how you said it, the host of witnesses is really something that I think, on a very deeper level, that it is my prayer that this music does that the music some kind of way, it penetrates, the hardness, it penetrates that shell or that, whatever that is caused us to become callous to each other, and in some instances callous to God.
We're going to take a brief intermission to fire up the old True Tunes jukebox. We've got Aretha Franklin's earth-shattering 1972 game-changing gospel classic, Amazing Grace, all queued up and ready. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, was in a rough place leading up to 1972. Jennifer Hudson does a masterful job approximating the trauma and strain that Franklin just barely survived in the recently released and fantastic biopic, Respect. While Aretha had extricated herself from an abusive marriage and had achieved stratospheric success on the pop and R&B charts, substance abuse and anxiety nearly stopped the music for her. But in 1971, after hitting her own rock bottom, Aretha returned to the music that had formed her. She insisted, over the mild objections of her label, Atlantic Records, that her next album would be a live gospel album. And on January 13th and 14th, 1972, at the New Temple Missionary Baptist Church in Los Angeles, under the musical direction of the legendary James Cleveland and with the backing of his Southern California Community Choir, she fulfilled that promise. Franklin knew that she needed to sing these songs, and frankly, with the Vietnam War still raging, the economy hitting the skids, and injustice festering in communities of color like an infected wound, the world needed these songs, sung in Aretha's uniquely passionate style, in a bad way. Amazing Grace combines traditional gospel standards with recontextualized, or even reinterpreted, soul, pop, and even show tunes, all recorded in an understated and yet jaw-dropping way. The opening track on the original vinyl release of Amazing Grace, Mary Don't You Weep, serves notice that the next hour and a half will somehow, maybe supernaturally, feature music that is simultaneously progressive and traditional. The subtle arrangement pulses with subdued energy and determination. Once it gets going, though, the voice at the center throws open the throttle and pulls everyone in.
We're gonna review the story of two sisters. Called Mary and Martha. They had a brother. Mary, don't you weep. Named Lazarus. Oh, Mary, don't. One day while Jesus was away, that day, oh, brother died. Yeah, yeah. When I met, went running to Jesus. She said, Master,
The second track does something very Jesus music-y. Franklin hijacks Carole King's You've Got a Friend, which had been a #1 hit the previous year for James Taylor and was a central song on King's Tapestry album, which continued to dominate in 1972. Franklin seamlessly stitches King's You've Got a Friend together with Thomas A. Dorsey's gospel classic Take My Hand, Precious Lord, reinterpreting King's Friend as Jesus. And she doesn't just go from one song to the other the way most medleys would. No, she goes back and forth until it really sounds like one new song. This is a mashup if ever I've heard one, and it is fantastic.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I get tired, I'm weak, and I get worn.
Franklin does a similar bit of secular sacred sleight of hand, or really it's just recontextualization, with her inclusion of the Rodgers and Hammerstein hit You'll Never Walk Alone from the 1945 musical Carousel. In that story, the protagonist won't walk alone because the ghost of their loved one, I suppose you could say the memory, will always be with them. Aretha, however, makes it perfectly clear that this is all about the Holy Ghost.
What you gotta do is walk on. That sounds mighty, mighty good to me right now. Walk on. With just a little bit of a heart. Right on. With just a little bit of hope in your heart. And you won't ever, God won't never, I know that He won't ever let you walk alone. No, He won't. You never.
Her inclusion of Marvin Gaye's Holy Holy from the previous year's stunning What's Going On album was less of a stretch lyrically, though it did ground Franklin's resurgent spirituality in a street-level concern for social justice, for which she had been known since her early days working alongside her father's friend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Holy, holy, holy. We can rock this earth's foundation. Yes, we can. Can't you see us, brothers and sisters, talking about love, 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 love. Holy, holy. We can rock this earth's foundation.
A small but mighty band brought the slightest hint of Muscle Shoals tone into the sanctuary, and the choir is never more than an inch away, often splitting the difference between how a choir normally functions and how background singers are used. The arrangements come deliciously close to blues and soul, like on God Will Take Care of You. You can almost picture Steve Cropper or the Swampers in the band.
I know for myself that He will. He will take care. Oh, yes, He will. He'll take care of you.
Those of you that know he'll take care of you, let me hear you say yeah. Say it again. Say it again. You know, over in the sanctified church, when they begin to feel like this, all the saints get together. Yes, they do. And they join in a little praise. I wonder, can I get you to help me say it one time? Yeah!
Amazing Grace was the right album at the right time for Aretha and for millions of others. Jerry Wexler, president of Atlantic and Franklin's co-producer since he first took her to Muscle Shoals in 1967 and revitalized her career, had the idea to send a film crew along to document the recording. He was well aware of the Jesus craze gripping the nation and guessed that a visual document might help export the black church experience to audiences outside of that community. That film, shot by the celebrated director Sidney Pollack, turned out to be unusable because he forgot to use clapboards and could not sync the audio to the picture. It was finally finished with more modern technology and released in 2018. I highly recommend it. By all accounts, neither Wexler nor anyone else at Atlantic expected this truly live album to be much more than a niche record. It would, however, go on to become Franklin's best-selling album. Rolling Stone ranked it at number 154 on their 500 Greatest Albums of All Time list. It won the Grammy in 1973 for the Best Soul Gospel Performance, and it remains the best-selling live gospel album of all time. Such is its stellar reputation that an expanded version has been released, containing the complete recordings of both nights' services. On Amazing Grace, Franklin dove straight into the roots of gospel while never losing track of the contemporary R&B style for which she had become so well known. In that way, she built a bridge, and I believe a critical one at that, for her pop and R&B fans, and later for kids like me. The album was accessible and relevant. It sounded like Aretha. It still felt like her. This assemblage of songs provided a veritable roadmap for the continuing evolution of contemporary gospel. Although Andrae Crouch had already been making albums for a few years by the time Aretha's Amazing Grace came around, this album surely paved a path for Andre's crossover success.
No more drugs, no more drugs, no more drinking, no more searching, no more running, no more loneliness. Jesus, satisfied. I found out, I found out, I found out, I found out. Black man, white man, red man, yellow man, brown man. Jesus, satisfied. Jesus, satisfied. Jesus, satisfied. I heard somebody say they were looking for satisfaction, but they couldn't find any satisfaction. One day I got down
jukebox is starting to smoke. Let's get back to the conversation with Myron before a full-blown fire starts in here. I know that you've worked in a broad set of contexts when it comes to music, as a worship pastor, as a producer, working with artists, working as an arranger. So you're working with young artists, you're working as, at church, you're just leading people in worship. So do you find that, I'm thinking about the fact that Andrae was able to reach and impact the black church and segments of the white church in a way that we just haven't seen since Andrae. And
right.
that has bothered me profoundly. And I wonder why. I wonder why we haven't seen that. I wonder what systems, and I know we're not going to figure that out in a conversation here today, but one of the things whenever I get back to Andrae's music, I start thinking about the ingredients, the tactics, the strategy, the style, whatever, the heart, what it was that he was doing that allowed him to transcend those barriers. And as a pastor yourself, as someone who's leading worship, who's writing songs, who's doing this, do you have any observations for us about about what it is that we as consumers of music, as users of music, maybe is it that do black gospel listeners use music in a different way than white worship church people use music? Is that part of the problem? Or is there any wisdom in Andrae's songs that can help us crack this code at all?
I don't have the answer to cracking the code. I know for the black gospel listener, for the black music listener, a lot of times the music is identifying with a struggle. The music is, giving voice to a struggle. And I think what I see a lot of now is there are two different perspectives on what the music is to accomplish. And when I say that, what I mean is, when we think about a song like Never Would Have Made It, that is giving voice to my struggle. And I think what happens is when we talk about black and white, or even just different cultures, rather, because Andrae, like you said, had a unique way to kind of bridge the gap, that even though our story and our journey wasn't the same, there was some sort of way that we could meet in the middle on this song, whether it was, It Won't Be Long, or Soon and Very Soon, or whatever these songs were, we could meet there. But I think now there is such a divide on our experience and our journey that it's like, if you don't understand, my struggle or where I come from, then I'm not going to let you speak to, that certain part of me. And it's like, even if you don't have my experience or my struggle, you still may be able to help me, even though you didn't come from my background or my upbringing. And I think on the other side of it, yes, there are some systems in place that have kind of perpetuated the divide, maybe in a, covert way. And I think that we've got to meet in the middle at a place of honesty. And I think the honesty is, yes, not just, I think honesty is both and admitting and having the conversation about what has happened. And even if one person, either you or me, didn't do it ourselves, we have to agree that these things happen. That's one part of the conversation. Then the other part of the conversation is, how can we move forward, and what does moving forward look like? Moving forward might look like something different for you than it does for me, but I think it's about having that honest conversation. I think there was, I won't necessarily say innocence in the sense of, no man is perfect, but there was an innocence and a very potent directness in Andre's music. Yes, the music was intentional. Yes, intentional about using this. We can, as you said, using different instrumentation and crossing over to the CCM. All of those things were strategic and intentional. But they're just the genesis of the song was not to let me see how I can attract more white listeners. The genesis of the song was, how can I communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ? And I think a lot of times, yes, as artists, we're trying to be strategic. We're trying to come up with the marketing plan. We're trying to do all of these, carnal things. But I think a lot of times, if we would put back at the top of the list to communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ to everyone. I always say Andrae Crouch's songs taught me scripture. I had, before I heard "We Are Not Ashamed of the Gospel of Jesus Christ," to everyone that believeth, to the Jew, first to the Gentile, to all of that, it taught me scripture. But that for me was what I gleaned from Andre's music, is that his ulterior motive, his main agenda, was to communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ to everyone and anyone that would listen. Not the Baptist listener, not the Kojic listener, not the Presbyterian listener, but to every listener. And so I think, of course, this part of the conversation is so wide and vast that there's no way we could even talk about, the length and breadth of it, more or less come up with a solution. But I think it starts with those honest conversations and our honest intent for the music.
The blood that Jesus shed for me, way back on Calvary, the blood that gives me strength from day to day, it will never lose its power.
It seemed like Andrae was also coming at it early enough that there hadn't yet really, an industry hadn't yet fully gelled around the divide between contemporary gospel, traditional gospel, contemporary Christian music. Radio wasn't playing any of it. So there was no CCM radio. There was most churches weren't using those songs yet. So now I hear artists like you, like Jonathan McReynolds, Travis Green. There are artists doing a lot of what Andrae was doing, but the white church and white Christian radio is just not listening. They're not. And yet I've also seen, especially in the decade or so that I was working in gospel music at Capitol, it was the black churches constantly taking worship songs from the white world and adapting them and bringing them into, we talked about that when we did that camp. So I do think that it is, there is work to be done on the,
absolutely,
in that conversation when it comes to like listening better. The theme of our show that has evolved is to listen to better music and listen to music better. And it seems that listening to music better involves slowing down and thinking and listening carefully, not just letting stuff wash over us and moving on to the next thing, but actually listening. And it occurs to me, and I want to say it occurs to me, it has been something I've been thinking about for a long time, that during the civil rights struggle of the 50s and 60s, one ingredient that helped move the ball forward on that was when audiences of certain power and privilege started to be forced to become aware of suffering and injustice that they were previously able to kind of tune out when the messages and the truth of that injustice was pushed to them through music and through television. And that music, a lot of that was rooted in gospel music. It was spirituals. It was music that started to come through, a lot of it from a church tradition, at least. Some of it very much gospel. Some of it gospel music that had kind of the Jesus part kind of pulled back a little bit, but it was more leaning on social justice tradition. But still, it was rooted in that tradition. And a record like this is a great entry point because you serve as sort of a guide with great songs and in great production. Can you think of what are some other artists, albums, things that you're listening to right now that you would suggest any of our listeners who are going, okay, I'm ready, I want to start to listen to some more gospel music? Who are some artists or things that you're listening to that you would recommend that people get into?
I am an old head, so for me, I'm all things Thomas Whitfield. So, Thomas Whitfield, was kind of at the beginning of that whole praise and worship thing as it relates to coming into the black community. But just, from a musician standpoint, Thomas Whitfield. But I would also say some of the early like Winans, and of course your Hawkins, and if it's someone that is just deciding or just starting to listen to gospel music, I personally would start older and work newer, because I think some of the newer stuff, we've gotten really, really creative. We pushed a lot of envelopes, and things can go in left field really, really quick. So just to kind of establish the fundamentals and the foundation, for me, that's Winans, that's Thomas Whitfield, that's the Hawkins, of course Andrae Crouch, and then work your way, forward, and I mean, you could also include your James Cleveland's or your, Shirley Caesar and Albertina Walker and the Caravans, or your, then we go up into Chicago, and, it could kind of morph, geographically, because Chicago gospel is different from Detroit gospel. It's different from, West Coast gospel. So for me.
And by different, you mean better, right?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I just mean, right. I just mean,
Milton Brunson. Milton Brunson was my thing
is
when I was a kid. Yeah,
that is the epitome. I mean, from choirs, John, I promise you, like I would literally leave on my high school lunch break and go get the latest Milton Brunson and Thompson Community record when it came out. Like, to me, choirs start there. Start with Milton Brunson, and then everybody else is after that. So but you have that, in Detroit, of course, you have Thomas Whitfield, you have Charles Nick, you have all of those out west. You have Wes Angeles, Kurt Carr, and Keith Pringle, and all of those in your Carolinas. Then you get into your John P. Keys, and you can go look further back. You go up to New York, you have Institutional Radio Choir, and if you come closer, you got Hezekiah Walker and the others. But I would start older and then work younger. In order to listen better, I think we have to slow down. I think there is such a frenetic pace of music today that it's almost impossible for somebody like me to catch up to all the music that's out, because music is releasing like at such a pace that you can't keep up, or it's difficult to keep up. So I would say slow down, listen better. I love how you say let the music wash over you. People don't do that. People listen to a song, maybe, and it's got to be a 3-minute song. Slow down and, be intentional about listening and appreciating the music. I think then, we have a more informed group of people who, support, listen to, and appreciate gospel music. One thing about Andrae that I always realize is that he had a knack, of course, songwriting, that's the understatement, but he had a knack for finding these unique vocal timbres and tones and voices that in and of themselves, they were just like, you talk about Tata Vega, you talk about Danny Bell Hall, you talk about Crystal Myrtle, you talk about all of these unique voices, and like the songs are iconic, but the voices themselves. And so for me, that was my thrust as well. So when you talk about like my tribute, Diana Reddick is this incredible singer, and of course social media makes discovering people a little easier than 20 years ago. She's an incredible soloist out of the Bay Area, and I was like, I gotta have her. I got like, and so she brings
But again,
this,
another person who we never have heard of before. I see her name and I had to look it up, and I was like, I never heard of her before. And then I hear her singing, and I thought, how in the world have we not heard this person before? And she just, and then you put her on such a marquee song, like that biggest song on the album, and you use an unknown voice in that, because the song is about "To God be the glory." I just love that. I mean, that's when I told you I took a long walk yesterday and I listened through the album again from the top, just because I'd been listening song by song, and I was like, I got to hear this again from the beginning. And I just went for a walk in the park and I put it on my headphones, and that song came on again, and it just gets me. It cuts right. The arrangement is so different. Like you get to the chorus and it locks in. I mean, it's not different from the original, but the way he wrote that song. The verses are, the chords are all over the place. The melody is like, it's like a gull that's flying over the waves, kind of looking for somewhere to land. You're kind of like, where is this going? Especially for a white guy who used to singing these really simple songs. It's like, it's hard to lead that song in church when you're not a gospel singer. I'm just going to confess, right? You get to the chorus and it's super easy. Like it's like just training wheels are back on the bike, and we know exactly where we're going. To God be the glory. We can do that. But you put her voice in there, and then you let it ascend and ascend and ascend, and by the end it's just exploding. And man, and I love that. I'm going, who is this? Who is this person?
Well, that's the thing. Andre's music took you on a journey. The songs themselves took you on a journey. And so for me, from a production standpoint, everything has got to undergird the same goal. We start in this very introspective, intimate kind of thing, and then it grows into, like you said, this corporate thing where everybody can kind of come in, and then Diana is the lift. And at first, it's this solo kind of singular thing, and then and it's all about Bill. And at that point, now we're off to the races. And at the end, you have to go to the mountaintop. You have to go all the way. And so for me, it was that journey. And her voice is such that she has so much nuance and color in her and power in her voice, because a lot of times what happens is you start off a song like that. By the time you get to the vamp, you're out of gas, and so you got to have somebody that's got like gas in the tank to speak carnally. She is definitely. And I think you're absolutely right. For me, with a song that iconic, it's not about a song that iconic doesn't need celebrity for it to accomplish what it needs to accomplish, because once again, the song is the star. The song is the star. And for me, that's what I'm hoping, that in a very secondary way, that songwriters of today understand. Let the song, let the lyric, let what you are trying to communicate be front and center, and let that be the star. I think a lot of times we find all this slick production, and yes, all that stuff has its place, but if we talk about fundamental songwriting, it has to be, you're taking me on a journey, and the journey has to be worthwhile.
Just let me live my life and let it be
Thanks for taking
Yes,
time
sir.
to talk with us about this, and thanks for putting so much heart and soul in this Andrae project. It just meant a lot to me. I know it means, and congrats on the Stellar Award, and couldn't happen to a better person, and thank you for being so faithful for so long. Blessings to your family, and thanks for taking this time, and it's good to see your face again, and hopefully it'll be in person before too long.
Right. Sooner than later.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for being here. I so appreciate Myron taking time with us today. I do hope you take some time to dive in not only to his My Tribute album of Andrae Crouch songs, but his deep catalog with his group Levi. Myron is such a gift and talent. And as I pull out my soapbox here to wrap things up, I feel that Myron has already covered most of what I wanted to say. My heart here has been to either introduce you to some great gospel music or to remind you of it. And Andrae Crouch and Aretha Franklin are about as accessible an entry point for gospel music as you can find. But here's the thing. There's more to listening well when it comes to gospel than merely appreciating the aesthetics. Myron was spot on when he said that many gospel music listeners are connecting with this music because it is the music of struggle, need, and hope. I think I connected with it at a young age because I was in a place of struggle and need, and boy did I need hope. I could relate to the pain and longing in gospel music much more than I could relate to the sunshine and implied affluence of a lot of the contemporary Christian music I heard from almost exclusively white artists. I didn't think much about that at the time, but I have been lately. And here's the thing, we are all needy. Some of us are just more in touch with our need. Some of us have enough material possessions, comfort, social capital, perceived security, and supposed freedom that we don't actually feel any real need anymore. Too often I have found my own contentment in those things, to the point that I don't even realize it. But what if no amount of affluence or power or influence will ever make me truly free? If that's the case, then maybe I need to be listening to more music that will connect me to my true, deep, and abiding needs. Maybe I need to listen for the struggle and engage with it. Maybe I need to become aware of the darkness and pain so that I can once again hunger for hope. The best gospel music helps me hunger for hope. It helps me empathize. It reminds me of my weakness and the strength that is available to me. I think that's why people outside of the evangelical bubble might smile and nod and maybe offer at best a mildly patronizing pat on the head to most CCM music, but when they hear gospel music, they react. That's partly because gospel is an actual genre and not just a sanitized version of some other type of music. But for most, I think it's because gospel music is the sound of hope, and who doesn't need some more hope these days? Okay. I'm climbing off my soapbox now. That's going to do it for this episode of the True Tunes podcast. You can find a full list of all of the songs you heard on this episode and links to Myron's fantastic work on the show notes page for this episode at truetunes.com. Do check out his My Tribute album as well as his other work with his group Levi, and let yourself fall down the gospel music rabbit hole. I want to thank our new Patreon supporters for helping us make this show possible. Our patrons get early access to higher quality audio files of each episode that they can download. We also do some Zoom meetups and more, and we'll soon have some Patreon-only swag available. If you'd like to support this show by joining our Patreon circle, you can find the link on the show notes page, or just go to patreon.com/truetunes and check it out. Thanks, as always, to my co-producer and engineer, Bruce A. Brown. Thanks to Phil Keggy and Rex Paul for our theme song, and to all of the other artists who allow us to use their music to make this show sound so good. It is harder than ever for us to stay connected. There's so much noise out there that it can be impossible to lock in on the signals we really want to hear. When it comes to the True Tunes conversation, there are a few things you can do that will really help us stay connected with you. First, sign up on our email list. It really is important to know that we can communicate directly with you without having to pay a middleman, like Facebook, for you to see what we post. Second, make sure to watch for the confirmation email and confirm it. Then add us to your contacts so our messages don't get caught in your spam filters. Next, find us on Facebook at True Tunes Now and like us there. Find us on Instagram at True Tunes Music and follow us there, and you can follow me on Twitter at John J. Thompson. Thanks. The contents of the podcast are protected by U.S. copyright law and are the intellectual property of Gyroscope Productions, with the exception of songs or clips that are from previously copywritten materials. Everything on this episode is used by permission or under fair use provisions. This program is intended for the private use of our listening audience. Gyroscope Productions can be reached at jjt@truetunes.com or P.O. Box 60401, Nashville, Tennessee 37206. Until next time, this is JJT inviting you to listen for the tunes that are true and start singing along when you find them. Peace.
My mind, I know that I've been born again. Oh, I know I've been born again. By the precious blood of the Lamb, I can stand and stand. I know that